Hi, I'm Gabe Fankhauser, Associate Professor of Music Theory at the University of North Georgia. This presentation, The Affect Circumplex and Meaning in Music Fundamentals, was created for the Music Theory Southeast 2021 online conference. While the intended audience of professional music theory conferences tends to be professors and graduate students in music theory, I aim to make this presentation accessible to music enthusiasts and non-musicians. Two of my goals, therefore, are 1. To advocate that instructors of music theory include interpretive questions of meaning, even at early stages of instruction, and 2. To help general audiences appreciate how basic music elements might convey meaning. Pedagogy of Music Fundamentals aims to develop skills of writing and identification of basic abstract musical elements. Those may include intervals, triads, rhythm, meter, key, which is a little more complex than the others. In my first example, the second movement from Mozart's Piano Sonata in F major, I circled the two flats in the key signature as representing the key of B flat major. But key signatures only suggest a key. I consider them, like scales, to be fundamentals of musicianship, not of actual music. Key signatures help a performer understand the music, but they are not heard. Similarly, scales are conceptual and practical structures more than elements within real music. You might be able to find nearly complete ascending B-flat major scale in the first two measures of the Mozart example, but the complex that we call key is more defined by sophisticated use of pitches and intervals. Other elements, including tempo, dynamics, timbre or tone color, register, and other features, also contribute both to the music and to what it conveys, though fundamentals courses rarely touch on those elements at all, much less what meaning they might convey. Development of fundamental skills tends to be removed from musical context and require little analytical or creative thinking. While a narrow focus may be effective in developing these basic skills, the lack of exposure to musical context at initial stages limits students' appreciation of the usefulness of the skills and misses a prime opportunity to introduce the depths to which the music analysis can lead to understanding and interpretation of meaning in music. By advocating that music instructors ask students deeper questions at all levels of music theory, even at the start of fundamentals, this presentation aims to push the study of music fundamentals into a more meaningful music theory. One primary question is, can fundamental musical structures convey meaning? And if so, how? Listen to the Mozart example and try to decide for yourself how, even without text, the music conveys ideas with its slow tempo, soft dynamics, major key, and 4/4 meter. Personally, I find two features of the opening two measures most remarkable. Both relate to how the right-hand melody in the top staff relates to the left-hand accompaniment in the bottom staff. First, I hear a conflict between the regular 16th note rhythm of the left hand, which strongly supports the meter, and the irregular rhythm of the melody, which works against it. Second, I hear a conflict between the descending simple major key accompaniment and the ascending melodies, which, while generally in harmonic agreement with the accompaniment, conflict most notably with the E natural in beat 3 and the A in the next measure. We might agree that the counterpoint or dialogue between these two voices creates something beautiful, but we are much less likely to agree on how the passage expresses meaning, if it expresses anything at all. The problem of how music may express meaning has continued to challenge scholars for years, possibly even before Plato and Aristotle connected musical features to human emotions over 2,000 years ago. But it takes very little musical knowledge to experience how music can be meaningful in some way. This presentation avoids questions of semantics and musical perception and simply proceeds with the assumption that beginning students have the capacity to appreciate meaningful methods and fruits of musical analysis, even without proficiency with its terms or tools. To visualize how musical elements may express basic meaning, we might draw on what psychologist James Russell calls the affect circumplex. In 1980, Russell countered predominant psychological theories of discrete, basic emotions by unifying a range of emotions into a single two-dimensional model, with valence or pleasure on the horizontal axis and activation on the vertical axis. A simple musical correlation to the affect circumplex might associate the horizontal axis, valence, with tonality, and the vertical axis, activation, with tempo. If tonality is understood narrowly, by equating major with positive valence and minor with a negative valence, and if tempo is understood narrowly by equating fast with high activity and slow with low activity, analysis of music using these two dimensions alone may lead to meaningful observations. The tonality-tempo axes may also be understood broadly. In addition to the major-minor duality, the tonality axis may include harmonic, melodic, and other considerations of pitch or tonal space. Similarly, the tempo axis, most simplistically represented by fast versus slow tempos, may be expanded to include considerations of perceived meter, rhythm, or other temporal elements. Resembling specialized physics graphs, conventional musical scores already coordinate relations between frequency on a vertical y-axis and time on a horizontal axis. I view Russell's affect circumplex as an inversion of those x and y axes, which goes against standards in physics and music, but I will follow his lead with activation or time on the vertical y-axis and valence or tone on the horizontal x-axis. Drawing analytical examples from popular music provides many benefits, including allowing students 1. To relate to music more personally, 2. To increase awareness of how even popular commercial music can reward academic inquiry, and 3. To appreciate how widely varied musical genres may express meaning using the same fundamental assumptions. Throughout this presentation, I will focus on specific fundamental features of each example, but I challenge you to consider where on the affect circumplex you might place the musical example, based on its valence and activation, that is, its treatments of tone and time. Can a single interval between two tones express meaning? Of course, as sound waves, intervals cannot express anything, and do not contain meaning in themselves. But our perception of organized sounds in context, whether in music or in spoken language, allows us to associate meaning to them. On the surface, basic claims may seem obvious. Major sounds happy, consonance is more comforting than dissonance. Recall the major harmony of the Mozart example above. Minor sounds sad, dissonance conveys a problem, which wants resolution. Recall the tonal conflicts in a melody of the same example. In isolation, a perfect octave may seem insignificant, but in context of the opening of Over the Rainbow from The Wizard of Oz, it potentially carries great meaning. The wide leap may represent an excited reach upward, way up high, and the yearning of the young Dorothy for a better place, free of mundane troubles. That interpretation is supported by the slower tempo, softer dynamics, higher register, and the subsequent major sixth leap upward. The opposite meaning may be inferred from the Jaws theme, in which a dissonant minor second interval is amplified by the low register and an accelerating tempo. To associate these elements specifically to a large shark in the deep ocean that is moving in closer and closer requires more information than the basic musical elements provide. But those elements all do nudge the music toward the affect circumplex's left side of lower valence, while the increasing activation of its acceleration pushes the music into the upper distress quadrant. In Hurt by Trent Reznor of the Nine Inch Nails, the subject struggles with a drug addiction and, at a low point in his life, turns to hurting himself in order to feel anything at all. Even before the opening tempo or tonality is established, rough noise at the start of the recording contributes meaning through timbre. Shortly thereafter, slow tempo and A minor tonality sufficiently place the song on the lower left quadrant of the affect circumplex, near Russell's labels of misery and depression. Most poignantly, pain in the song is induced by a clear tritone interval in the opening guitar. Students who are not yet comfortable writing or identifying these more difficult intervals still have the capacity to perceive how that one interval from A to D sharp sounds troubled in context of A minor. The poignant D sharp enters like a thorn into the music. Like the subject, the interval's relatively long duration of dotted half notes focuses on the pain.
I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real.
Would omitting the dissonant tritone alter the song's meaning? Would it lessen the pain? Johnny Cash's cover of the song does just that, and provides a notable comparison, as well as a remarkable connection between normally disparate styles, between 90s industrial alternative music on one hand and acoustic country on the other. Replacing the D sharp with an E, which sits comfortably in A minor, Cash's pain seems less acute, more numb, and perhaps more chronic.
I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real.
Rivers Cuomo of Weezer invokes a similar distress in Undone, the Sweater Song. The key of G major, which suggests a secure, positive valence, is challenged by the strange opening intervals, major sixth, then augmented fourth, then minor second. Each interval pulls from the stability of the underlying harmony, tugging on the threads that hold together the subject's sweater and support the lyrics of the chorus. If you want to destroy my sweater, hold this thread as I walk away. But of course, the song is not about a sweater. The lyrics reveal the true subject. Watch me unravel. I'll soon be naked. Lying on the floor, I've come undone. The climax and final chorus of the song enter 3 minutes later. Now, a more dissonant interval supports how things really seem to have come undone for the subject. Conflicting with the B natural in the underlying G major harmony, the singer sings a high B flat. The resulting diminished octave from B natural up to B flat, created by what could be described as a flat third blue note, marks the most dissonant interval in the song. Cuomo's brief voice crack, not really a standard musical element, adds to his desperation. In general, fast tempo with major triads alone might place an excerpt in the upper right excitement quadrant of the affect circumplex. In the Looney Tunes opening theme from the 1930s Warner Brothers cartoons, the strange harmonic relations, which expert theorists might call a complete hexatonic cycle through chromatic third relations, augment the music's excitement toward animated lunacy. With its moderately slower tempo and preponderance of minor triads, the Imperial March, known as Darth Vader's theme from Star Wars, sits on the opposite side of the circumplex. Yet, like the Looney Tunes theme, the strange chromatic third relations heighten the harmonic unpredictability. But now it is not the brightness of major triads that is augmented, but the inherent darkness of minor triads. A better opposite of Looney Tunes in terms of valence might be found in Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train. One of several guitar solos of Randy Rhoads in the song really seems to go off the rails on a crazy train with its chromatically ascending arpeggiations of diminished triad. The rhythm of each triad arpeggiation contributes to the idea as well. While the regular grouping of 4/16 notes fits evenly within the 4/4 meter, the 3-note grouping of the arpeggiations creates a misalignment and further pushes the music off the rails.
I'm going off the rails on a crazy train.
Even without consideration of pitch, rhythm and meter can support a message or narrative. Grandmaster Flash's 1982 song, The Message, was among the first breakthrough hip-hop songs to express social commentary on inner-city struggles. His unsettling rhythm alone supports the narrative of being on edge, of conflicting with some predefined norms. Compare my square reading of his lyrics, in which I accent more important words in alignment to a regular pulse, to Grandmaster Flash's syncopated, more artistic and more meaningful reading. Don't push me 'cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle. Sometimes it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
Don't push me, 'cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
Part of the expression of meaning comes from the conflict between the irregular rhythm and the regular 4/4 meter, which tends to provide a temporal backdrop for music more than engage directly with its dramatic expression. Can meter alone express meaning? Given that meter tends to be regular and that 4/4 represents a conventional norm in music, consider how the Canadian rock band Rush asserts their free will. Critics of progressive rock might attribute metrical irregularity to the genre's aesthetic attraction to a complexity and asymmetrical abstract relations. But I would argue that in this introduction to Rush's song Free Will, irregular meter is intimately tied to expression of the song's text, as it intentionally goes against the norm. You can choose a ready guide in some celestial voice. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. You can choose from phantom fears and kindness that can kill. I will choose a path that's clear. I will choose free will. Each example above uses a specific element in some remarkable and I think meaningful way in the context of the music. What about music that lacks clearly marked elements? What would you expect music to mean, for example, with a major key, moderately fast tempo, little or no dissonance, simple meter, non-aggressive timbre, simple melodies, and so on? If you can think of some examples, consider how they are placed on the affect circumplex. Musical elements in Jackson 5's song ABC may be less marked than in earlier examples, but I find those elements no less meaningful. In the 1970 hit song, the young subject, represented by a 12-year-old Michael Jackson, expresses an innocent, adolescent love for a girl and tries to convince her how easy love can be, comparing it to a grade school lesson, ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, and their musical equivalent, do, re, mi's. Listen for how the bass line combines all three lessons into one elementary gesture. Its notes, A flat, B flat, C, form in A flat major scale degrees 1, 2, 3, which are commonly sung do, re, mi. final examples, I place all the songs analyzed above onto Russell's affect circumplex. Placement is approximate according to a generalized valence and activation. We could add more songs onto the chart according to some basic musical elements, even with little or no consideration of the song's lyrics. Notice how the titles of these added songs correlate with their location, especially those I place at the most extreme corners. In the farthest upper left distress quadrant is a heavy metal song about war, Slayer's War Ensemble from 1990. The lower left depression quadrant has Pink Floyd's Comfortably Numb from 1979, one of many of their songs that reference numbing drug use and societal pressures. The lower right contentment quadrant has Kenny G's Sentimental from 1992, and the upper right quadrant with the highest valence and activation has James Brown's I Feel Good from 1964 and Pharrell Williams' Happy from 2013. Countless more examples could be added from a wide variety of genres. Those include music without text. The second movement of Mozart's Piano Sonata in F major from the opening of this presentation might lie comfortably near contentment, certainly lower in activation than the faster first or third movements, which I encourage you to compare. In the end, I hope that examples above support my two goals. One, to inspire music instructors to discuss ideas of musical meaning even at early stages of musical fundamentals courses. And two, to show general audiences how music theory might open doors not only into understanding how music works, but how basic elements in music can contain or represent or express meaning in support of a narrative. For many viewers, this presentation may raise more questions than it answers. Questions like, how reliably do certain qualities of intervals, triads, or other elements place music on the affect circumplex? I can envision discussions regarding where some of the songs should be placed and reasons behind their placement. But there are deeper issues. What role might irony have in placement, or better, misplacement, of the music's perceived affects? Can you think of examples in which major is not happy, or minor is not sad? If expression of meaning in music does not derive a priori from these structures at all, and if meaning depends more on our own cultures or personal experiences, does that counter my simplified analysis, which focuses on a few basic elements without deeper consideration of semantics or hermeneutics? I think it does not, though this presentation barely scratches the surface of the topic. I would encourage anyone interested in how meaning can be expressed in music, or more accurately, how listeners attribute meaning to music, both to develop proficiency in music fundamentals and to read deeper essays in the area, which continues